Welcome to Tansson TV Plus. I'm Brandon,
And I'm Mom.
and welcome back to another first episode Friday. How you doing, Mom?
I am doing fine. Thank you for asking, Brandon. And how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, and Mom, are you able to let us know what show are we speaking about here today?
Yes, today we're going to be talking about home improvement.
Yes, and so this is a TV series from 1991 to 1999, and it's found on the streaming service that we are focusing this month on.
Yes, we are talking about Disney Plus shows this month.
Yes, and so we're very excited to speak about the show from Wind Dancer Productions and Touchstone Television. And Mom, are you able to let us know about this pilot episode?
I sure will. And once more, we welcome you back to another first episode Friday. And like I said, we're talking about home improvement. And what I'm going to do this time, Brandon, is I'm going back to my old favorites, which is what did I learn about this series in this first episode? All right. And so, first of all, we have a married couple named Tim and Jill, and they've been married for many years. They have three boys that they are raising. Um, Tim's profession, has a relatively new home improvement TV show. And so, and then we also find out that Jill has been a stay at home mom for many years. Um, During this pilot episode, we learn that Jill wants to go back into the workforce and she has started interviewing for different positions. Um, However, her husband is not necessarily taking her quest seriously, but she's determined to kind of go back into the workforce. And so Tim is one to actually seek advice from other people. And so he seeks advice from his backyard neighbor. We do notice in the first episode that his backyard neighbor does not really show his face. If you watch the show later, you realize that the neighbor never shows his face. Well, portions of his face are shown through the fence. Anyway, we also learned that Tim believes that he is a handyman who can give his appliances or anything in his house a little bit more power. Um, as Tim tapes his shows for his TV series, we notice that he does send some messages to his wife as he's taping his shows. So, for example, if Tim has done something at home that he shouldn't have done, or he thinks something is wrong, or if he's just trying to make peace, he will give us a message to his wife during the show itself. With his three boys that he has, we do know that Tim is actually training his boys to kind of be a little bit of a reflection of him. And so that in itself just kind of gives a little bit of information about the show itself. The first episode, like I said, really stemmed upon Joe going out and interviewing and Tim not being and not quite realizing how important that is for his wife.
Well, Mom, thank you so much for that.
You're welcome, Brandon.
Yeah, and so, Mom, overall, what were your thoughts about this pilot episode of Home Improvement?
Well, I liked the episode itself. It still made me laugh. I thought, as I kind of told you, and I didn't quite realize that it seemed dated to me. But I don't know if it seemed dated because I have not seen the episodes in a while, or if it really just did feel dated. But the show itself is funny, and like I said, it made me giggle. So, and it's been years and years since I've seen the show, and so I did watch it when it was originally on in the '90s. And I know I've seen all of the episodes again at some point in time, and so but it was nice to go back and rewatch the show.
Yes, and to speak a little bit about how much I know about the show is that, yeah, about a few years ago, actually, it may have been longer than that. It was definitely longer than that. We did sit down and, uh, for you, rewatch from you watch for the first time the whole series all the way through, but we haven't really seen much of it since then.
Yep, that is true. It has been years. Now I was going to ask you, Brandon, what are your thoughts about the show?
About just the show overall or just this episode?
Actually, both. Let's do the episode first.
Yeah, so to speak about the episode first, I'll speak about my thoughts and answer your thoughts. But yeah, I think for me, I mean, I definitely enjoyed the episode, and it reminded me a bit of just a typical pilot episode in the sense that you saw a lot of the inner workings and testing out, things to see what works. Like for instance, we're able to see, like you mentioned, Tim with his neighbor Wilson. We're able to see like the beginnings of that, and yeah, so we're able to see, I mean, that initiate, and Jill wanting to for Tim to take things more seriously. And so, as I mean, I think overall the show is, as you mentioned, a funny show, but in terms of feeling outdated, I think it's a mixture of both the show itself and also that we haven't seen in a while. I think we've seen our fair share of outdated shows, but I think what makes it sort of more jarring is that we're not as familiar, with it as some other equally outdated shows. And so for us looking at this, it's like, wow. Well, the main issue, the main concern is that whether Joe is working or not.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's true. And I guess it's a topic that I hadn't seen in quite a while. And so that's what kind of gave me a little bit of the outdated notion. Um, but you're right, it's something that I just have not seen in a while.
And actually, I feel like our reaction to this actually makes me think about because even though this is for our standards anyway, rather modern at 1991. But then I think back to the 2010s where the first episode of the show Are We There Yet that we spoke about. I mean, the whole issue was Suzanne's hyphenated name.
Yes, yeah, which is something different at that time period. But yes. And what did you think about the series overall?
Oh, for the series overall, I love it. I love that each of the characters are given their own their names and personalities. And if you're looking at the credits, for this first episode, the pilot, is that one of the stars who was on the show from the very beginning was not a main cast member.
Yeah, and you brought that out, and so that was surprising to see.
Yes, and of course we're referring to Al, who is Tim's co-host on Tool Time, which is the show within a show for this series.
Yes, yes.
But yeah, but I like that that we're able to see him in this first episode from having done a little bit of research. I know that he was made to be portrayed by a different actor, but the other actor wasn't available. But I really liked this version of the character, Richard Karn. I mean, I think he's probably one of my favorite parts of the series.
Yeah, he is. And he probably surprised the people on the show himself, but yeah, he did become a very good character.
But yeah, and we do have a little bit of a connection.
Oh, yes, Brent, tell us about our connection.
Yeah, so the series is made in part and produced by Matt Williams, and so he was actually. Mom, do you remember what where we connect with him for?
Brandon, what did we connect him with? What show?
So yes, Matt Williams. He was the creator of Roseanne.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. You're right, Brandon. I'm sorry. I don't know how I could forget that.
But yeah, and I think while we were speaking, while we were watching, I think you said that this actually made you somewhat feel like Roseanne.
That is true. That was one of the first lines that I said was that I had kind of like a Roseanne moment while I was watching it.
But yeah, and so in which manner do you believe that it felt like Roseanne?
I think it was some of the actually. I think it was just some of the way that they spoke to each other, and then some of their sentences kind of was kind of the same. I couldn't tell you right now what they were, but the same type of sentences were used.
But yes, and so I said Matt Williams. He was best known for the creator of Roseanne. He co-created Home Improvement, and he also co-wrote the pilot for A Different World.
Okay, and all of them I watch.
Yes, and so for Roseanne and Different World, those were made by Carsey Warner, whereas this Home Improvement was made by Touchstone Television, aka Disney.
Okay, sounds great.
But yeah, and Mom, we did have a theme song.
Oh yeah, we did have a theme song. It is an instrumental theme song. I think you have to be a fan of Home Improvement to actually know the theme song. It's not one that people are going to know automatically. It's a catchy theme song. Throughout the years, they condensed the song, but it is just a catchy, just an instrumental version. I think what's more impressive is really the graphics that's behind it, because you're showing a house being built and then the family in the house. So I think the graphics itself is actually more impressive.
But yes, I mean, it definitely is impressive. And I like that over the years that they were able to change it and update it, but still keep the same essence of it.
Yes, they did.
But yeah, but Mom, is there anything else that you wanted to speak about? I mean, and as far as the show?
No, kind of like I mentioned before, the show itself is a nice show. It's a nice family show, so anyone's able to watch the series with their children. And those are the types of shows that I kind of like to watch. So yes, I will continue watching the show. I won't let this much time pass in between watching it again, but I will go back and watch some more episodes.
Is there anything that you'd want to look for in particular in your reviewing?
Well, one of the things that I've done with some other shows is I've kind of watched the growth of the children, and so because and to take it from the perspective of maybe one of them, and so I have found that interesting as I've kind of watched shows and I kind of see where how the writers have led a particular person. And so I've done that with doing watching one of the children on the show, or I've done it with sometimes with one of the main characters to see how the or a side character, actually the best person to do that with, a side character to kind of see how they grow with the series itself.
And that was something that you've done long before we even started doing these discussions.
Yes, that's something that we've talked about, just to see the growth of how the writers decide to kind of change things along the way.
But yeah, so that definitely would be interesting. And I mean, same thing for for me. I'd like to see how the characters grow, and actually, I'd like to see how in this case how Tim has grown in his views, because oftentimes we see the sort of the clash, usually comic clash of Tim and his wife Jill. But I'd like to see how his views had changed from episode one to the final episode, 200 something episodes later.
Yeah, and I'd also like to see some of the things that he claims that he fixes, because I know at some point in time they had a car that they kind of showed that he was kind of quote unquote working on, and at some point they kind of showed the car completed, and I never quite realized that it was a continuous car that he was working on. So, so actually, I would like to kind of take a look at that to see is there a project that he kind of worked on throughout the series or for portions of the series that I didn't pick up on. So that would be fun to watch.
Yeah, I definitely would. And I did want to make a quick mention too and say, of course, Tim Allen, who portrays Tim on the show, he has a new sitcom coming up that begins in January, I believe.
Yep, and we'll be watching it.
Yes, and so that show is, as of right now, called Shifting Gears, and so I'm definitely excited for us to tune into it.
Yep, so am I, Brandon.
But yeah, but Mom, I always love doing this with you. Is there anything else you want to mention for home improvement?
No, I think we've covered home improvement. So we just kind of thank everyone for joining us today.
And we'll see you next time.
All right, have a great day, everybody. Bye bye.